Hi, everyone. I'm Vladimir Dutit. We are watching all the news happening in the United States and around the world. Check out these feeds behind me. These are feeds coming into the CBS News Broadcast Center from all of our stations and affiliates around the country. If there is news happening out there, we're going to bring it to you live right here. Let's begin this morning with those long lines, gridlock, delays, and a record number of travelers in for what could be an incredibly messy day on the road and in the skies. We have reports from all across the country, but some wintry, wet weather could make matters even more difficult, if you can believe that. So we'll have the very latest on the forecast. Plus, a ceasefire reached between Israel and Hezbollah appears to be holding. What's in the deal and what it means for the region as a whole. This is CBS News 24/7. The holiday travel rush is underway around the U.S. and clock is ticking for Americans to make it to their Thanksgiving destinations. U.S. airports are packed with a record number of flyers. TSA is expected to screen 2.9 million people today. That is more than the 2.8 million people they planned to screen yesterday. And if you're taking a road trip, you'll have plenty of company. AAA says 72 million people are getting behind the wheel this Thanksgiving week. That is up by more than 1 million from last year. CBS News senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve is one of those people on the road in that super hot convertible. We're tracking his route. Can't you see? That's Chris Van Cleve in a little tiny red convertible. He just started early this morning, just north of New York City. He is now just outside of Philadelphia. And let's bring you to Chris live in that little red. Oh, it's not a convertible. Oh, Chris, what a bummer.
It's not. Some things are different than they appear. Yeah, we couldn't fit everybody in the Corvette, Vlad, and we didn't, and you couldn't ride with us, so it just didn't seem like the right car to rent for this trip.
Right.
Next time. Next time we'll take the show on the road.
So what's it looking like out there?
The drive has been pretty good. We hit some traffic leaving New York City this morning. We'll eventually end up in Washington, D.C. after we've sampled some of the drive here. 95, traditionally the busiest freeway on the East Coast. AAA said expect traffic to really start picking up after the 10 a.m. hour across the country. So traffic volume will start to build now as people are getting on their way today, and it will get worse when we get into the afternoon, and then it'll start to mix with the Wednesday rush hour for all the people that had to work today who just want to go home. So right now is a good time to be on the roads. It'll get worse as the day goes on, and then when we look towards the other side of the Thanksgiving holiday, AAA and the airlines expected an increase in people leaving as soon as Friday morning, but also Saturday afternoon. And then we know that Sunday will be very, very busy, both at airports and on the roads. Basically, think about from 1 p.m. till the end of Sunday into Monday morning. That's going to be very, very busy for drivers on the roads.
So let me ask you, Chris, how much did it cost you to fill up the tank? And how far are you going? Because I want to know how many times you're going to have to fill up and what the price differential will be from state to state.
Well, Tony, what did it cost when you filled this up last? About $65 to fill up this Suburban when we filled up last. Photojournalist Tony Furlow tells me. We'll see some variances, certainly. Gas prices, though, Vlad, are down about 20 cents a gallon on average from where they were last year. About half the country is paying less than $3 a gallon. So we will cost CBS less than we did last year for this drive.
All right, Chris, we're going to keep checking with you throughout the day. Tell that Tony Furlow guy to keep his eyes on the roads. He's got valuable cargo right there next to him.
Precious cargo.
Precious cargo, KVC. Precious, both of you. Happy Thanksgiving to you and Tony, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlad. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right. It's not just the roads that are busy, but the airports are very busy today as well. CBS News Philadelphia reporter Brandon Goldner has more from Philly International, where the line started early this morning.
We're already starting to see some long lines here at Philadelphia International Airport. Right now, things have quieted a little bit. Security wait times are about 20 to 25 minutes for the TSA general line, though earlier in the morning it was a lot longer, close to an hour wait time. Right now there are no flight delays at this time at Philadelphia International Airport, but we are expecting to see a lot of people at the airport. An estimated 94,000 people expected to travel today. It's expected to get a lot busier on Sunday when people are going to be returning home. Reporting for the Weather Channel, Brandon Goldner.
All right, let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with the first look at the national forecast. Hey, Grant.
Hey, good morning, Vlad. Good morning, guys. Hey, we're starting off our, at least pre-Thanksgiving travel. A lot of people, though, on the eastern half of the United States doing okay. We look at mostly sunny skies, a good portion of the Northeast. You got some rain starting to move into the Ohio Valley, but this is going to be the concern as we make our way into Thanksgiving itself. Right now it's the concern for the high plains. You've got snow up towards Denver. Some places in Denver could see 3 to 6 inches of snow. But watch as this storm system advances to the east as we go from today into tonight, but really into our Thanksgiving. Temperatures across the east are going to be a little bit above normal, but watch as this storm system starts to pull out of the Midwestern states into the Northeast. It will be a soaking start to our Thanksgiving across the Mid-Atlantic into the Northeast, if not a snowy start as you get up into parts of northern PA, upstate New York. Back to the west, as that storm system clears out, much colder air begins to invade the eastern half of the United States. It will be a cool Friday with temperatures in the upper 40s in places like New York, but bitterly cold temperatures, some Arctic air invading the north into the Midwest and ultimately into the Northeast. Vlad, we'll talk about this in a bit, but this will be unseasonably cold air as we go into the weekend. A lot of people traveling home, maybe doing some holiday shopping. We'll highlight that forecast for you here in just a little bit.
All right, Grant Gilmore for us. Thanks, Grant. We have some breaking news out of China this morning. The White House has confirmed that 3 Americans were released from detention. Their names, Mark Sweden, Kai Li, and John Lung, have been held for many, many years. CBS News political reporter Torian Small is traveling with President Biden, who's in Nantucket this morning. So, Torian, what more can you tell us about this prisoner exchange?
Yeah, Vlad, this exchange happens for a swap of unidentified Chinese nationals. We know that the longest U.S. prisoner serving time in China happened back in 2012. So these talks apparently have been ongoing with this administration and the People's Republic of China. We're told that the president even communicated this swift release of these Americans during his conversation with President Xi at APEC just this month. We are told that the longest serving, so his name is Mark Swiden. He's been serving since 2012 for drug-related charges. No guidance yet on when these Americans will be released back or returned back to the United States, but they have been released flat.
All right, Torian, let me ask you about this ceasefire deal that is happening now between Israel and Lebanon. How big of a win is this deal for President Biden and the legacy he's leaving behind next month?
Well, it flies in the face of the mockery of the Trump campaign, a pretty effective campaign on the trail about Biden not being able to solve these international conflicts. The Trump campaign says that the Biden administration is one of chaos when it comes to foreign relations. So this is a small win. The president also, though, communicated that he still will work for a ceasefire deal in Gaza. This agreement, of course, doesn't relate to that, but he says that he's working with Egypt. He's working with Qatar. He's going to work with Israel and others for a ceasefire deal there as well. Now, we know that the terms of this agreement will include U.S. troops there to help facilitate it, but the president underscored that he will not be sending U.S. troops to an active conflict zone. He is again saying that this is just to facilitate the terms of this ceasefire deal.
So he is still hopeful, even in the waning days of his administration, Torian, that he can secure a ceasefire deal between the Israelis and Hamas in Gaza?
And it's been a big push point for folks on the left. Progressives have long called for a ceasefire deal, and this is something that the Biden administration has communicated that while he's also looking to end the conflict, he's also hoping for return of the Israeli prisoners taken by Hamas during the October 7th attack. So that is the goal here as he looks to exit the office to secure this deal and hopefully end the conflict, the ongoing conflict that's happening there.
All right, Torian Small in Nantucket. Thank you, Torian. All right, this video shows families leaving a shelter and planning to return to southern Lebanon today. This, of course, after that ceasefire deal we just told you about was reached between Israel and Hezbollah. Our Deborah Pata has more from northern Israel.
Lebanon is just behind that hill. Kiryat Shmona has been a ghost town here in Israel for over a year. On our way in, we saw some shops reopening and a few cars driving in. We also heard 2 outgoing explosions, but nobody is saying the ceasefire has been breached yet. Israel and Hezbollah were exchanging heavy fire until the very last moments before that ceasefire began. Then, in the early hours of this morning, the guns fell silent. Now, the tense 60-day wait to see if this holds. During this period, Israel must withdraw from Lebanon and Hezbollah retreat north of the Litani River, while Lebanese troops and UN forces keep the peace. There is deep distrust on both sides. Many Israelis say it's not safe to go home because Hezbollah can still harm them, while in Lebanon, many residents say they don't believe in this ceasefire because Israel cannot be trusted. But that lack of trust has not stopped thousands of Lebanese civilians trying to return home despite warnings that it's still too dangerous. Now, this deal has revived hope for a Gaza ceasefire, but a former Israeli military intelligence officer told us he's convinced Israel will not be leaving the Palestinian territory for a very long time. Back to you.
All right, Deborah, thank you very much. Donald Trump issued another flurry of picks for his new administration last night, 6 in 1 hour to be exact. His team also signed a critical document after weeks of delay, allowing his picks to begin actually meeting with their Biden-era counterparts ahead of the January transition. A statement from the incoming White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, reads in part, quote, "This engagement allows our intended cabinet nominees to begin critical preparations and complete the orderly transition of power." CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang is live in West Palm Beach, Florida, and she joins me now. Weijia, good to see you. So explain what this memorandum of understanding is and what can happen now that this key agreement has finally been announced.
Vlad, it's always great to see you. So this memorandum, known as an MOU, is a very typical document that is shared between the current administration and incoming administration that basically triggers the official transition between the two. And so counterparts incoming will be able to meet with the current people there so they have a clear understanding of the job, of the role, and of the current work that they're doing in case they do want to extend that. And you did mention that this is delayed. Typically, this is signed back in January. The Harris-Walz transition team signed this months ago. So this is quite a delay, Vlad, because as you know, the inauguration is less than 2 months away. So you can imagine sort of the late start that they are getting, but we also know that anything having to do with Team Trump is non-traditional. What's also interesting here, Vlad, is that in that statement that the incoming Chief of Staff relieved Susie Wiles, she also said that they would not be taking taxpayer funds for this transition. And typically, administrations do. In that case, they can only accept up to $5,000 in donations. And if they're using private money, you know, someone could donate millions or even $1 billion, and they don't have to disclose that because it's not taxpayer funds. So that is something that we are asking a lot of questions about, Vlad.
And so my understanding, Weijia, when I saw the interview that CBS Mornings did earlier with Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, is that he did have discussions with his incoming counterpart in the Trump administration. So is that sort of a picture of what things could look like in the next couple of weeks?
Yes, exactly. There will be conversations and lots of meetings. They are what's called landing teams, basically people who are chosen to go in, collect information, have these conversations, and bring it back to the rest of the officials that will be working. So far, we don't know who exactly is on the landing team. In that case, it's a principal-to-principal meeting, but there are other people involved as well. And the Trump transition team said that they would disclose who is doing that work on behalf of the president-elect, but so far we don't know who's involved in this process. Again, the MOU was just signed yesterday.
All right, and let me ask you about this new cabinet member, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, for Director of National Institutes of Health. This is someone who, as you know, we opposed COVID-era lockdowns. What are you hearing about that?
Well, that's exactly why his name is both famous and, or maybe I should say infamous, because of his stance during the pandemic. And he was very vocal about it. He wrote an entire declaration that offered something alternative to lockdowns because he really believed that that was the wrong move. And if you do remember, there were times where President-elect Trump also criticized lockdowns, even though his administration did put some into place. And so this is another example, Vlad, of Trump's desire to disrupt. He will be working hand in hand with his nominee for the Secretary of Health and Human Services, that's RFK Jr., if Kennedy is ultimately confirmed. And both of these gentlemen are known as being, on the fringe of the norms when it comes to health and medicine. Of course, JFK Jr. is well known for being very critical of vaccines.
Indeed. All right, Weija, great to see you, my friend. Happy Thanksgiving.
To you too, Vlad.
Okay, now to this. A wanted terror suspect caught after more than 2 decades on the run. We are going to have the details on this guy. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. A U.S. bombing suspect who was on the FBI's most wanted terror list has been captured in Wales after 21 years on the run. Daniel Andreas Santiago was found in the UK on Monday. The 46-year-old was wanted for his alleged involvement in 2 Northern California bombings in 2003. He was detained and appeared in a London court yesterday. Andreas now faces extradition to the U.S. Okay, traffic is now flowing in Pakistan's capital after 4 days of deadly protests. Police have reopened roads in Islamabad today. At least 7 people died in marches calling for the release of former Prime Minister Imran Khan, who's been in jail since last August. Police had blocked key roads connecting the city to the rest of the country amid all of the chaos. And there are reports that the UN is evacuating a small number of staff in Haiti as gang violence escalates in Port-au-Prince, the capital. More than 40,000 people have been displaced from the area in the last 10 days. That's according to UN data. So I want to bring in Haiti Caribbean correspondent for the Miami Herald, Jacqueline Charles, to talk more about all of this. Jacqueline, always great to have you when we're talking about what is happening in Haiti. So what can you tell us about the latest developments there?
Well, what we are seeing, as you mentioned in your intro, is that the UN and other aid agencies are relocating staff. In some cases, they're moving to the north to Cap-Haïtien, which is the second largest city, which basically has a small international airport, which right now offers the only air bridge in and out of Haiti. And in other cases, they are leaving. They're relocating to other places. The U.S. Embassy, for instance, did an evacuation flight for diplomats. It's the 5th time since 2019 that the U.S. has evacuated its staff at its embassy. We have no idea how many people are currently left, and they are quietly evacuating American citizens in need. But most people have to rely on private helicopters, which are also limited. The options are very limited right now to get out the country, as we're seeing an escalation in gang violence. IOM says 40,000 people have been displaced in just 10 days. Because of this new round of violence.
So there are probably some people, Jacqueline, here in the United States who were perhaps hopeful when it was announced that a peacekeeping force of mostly Kenyan soldiers were going to travel to Haiti to try and bring about some level of peace and security for the people there. But that has been anything but. So what can you tell us now about what the United States is trying to accomplish with the UN peacekeeping force?
Yeah, that force is just 416 individuals when it should be 2,500. The international community has just not responded. The Biden administration has poured over $300 million. They're hoping to provide another $300 million in equipment before they leave, but they're really pushing for a formal UN peacekeeping operation to come into Haiti. But right now, China and Russia are opposed to this, even though this has the support of the majority of the countries in this hemisphere. With this alarming violence that you're seeing in Haiti, 5.4 million people who are going hungry, over 700,000 people who are displaced. This is very worrying for Haiti's neighbors, including the United States at this point, because we know when a country is unstable, that instability has a way of just spilling over.
Yeah, for sure. And what about for those Haitian Americans or simply people who have family here in the United States who want to try to fly out in time for the holidays here? What is happening for them? Are they having to travel by road to the Dominican Republic or some other way to maybe in the north to get out of Haiti?
Well, there is no Dominican Republic. I mean, the airspace between the DR and Haiti has now been closed officially for a year. The border itself is also closed. There are ongoing similar tensions between these two neighbors that share the island of Hispaniola. The only way out is through Cape Haitian, and the only airlines are having to charge exorbitant fees because of the insurance. This month, three U.S. airliners were hit by gunfire from gangs in the capital. There is a 30-day ban by the FAA, which expires on the 12th, but we don't know if it will be renewed. And you have an airline like American Airlines, which right away says we're not returning until February 12th, at least. And with Haiti, you never know how things are going to evolve. So right now, people are basically stuck where they are unless they have deep pockets to pay for a helicopter ride, which is $2,500 one way out of the capital, and then to pay for an airfare, which is about $1,400 round trip to the U.S. So we're talking about a lot of money. You really have to be in a desperate situation to either leave or to go.
Yeah, for sure. Jacqueline Charles reporting from Miami for us this morning on the dire situation in Haiti, as she has for nearly 2 decades. Jacqueline, thank you very much. We appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
All right, now to some other news. Harvey Weinstein is threatening to sue over allegations of medical neglect. Details on what he claims his life is like behind bars on Rikers Island. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Here's a look at some of the top stories we're following for you this morning. Harvey Weinstein is suing New York City, claiming he's being neglected in jail as he awaits a new trial on sex assault charges. Weinstein's lawsuit accuses the people who operate Rikers Island of failing to manage his health. He also claims he's being subjected to unfair conditions like freezing temperatures and a lack of clean clothes. The city's law department and Department of Corrections did not immediately respond to our request for comment. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met Pope Francis this morning. It happened after Blinken attended the G7 foreign ministers meeting near Rome. During their interaction, Blinken gave the pontiff a piece of art made by an American artist. The Pope offered Blinken his writings with the message, quote, "Hope does not disappoint." And Australia's government is one step closer towards getting kids off of social media. The House of Representatives passed a bill yesterday banning X, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and others for kids under 16. Australia's Senate is expected to pass the bill tomorrow, putting it on track to become law. All right, President Biden says he directed his team to work with both the Israeli and Lebanese governments to bring the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah to a close. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan joined CBS Mornings earlier today and discussed the U.S.'s role in ensuring the deal does not collapse. Listen.
We're going to have to monitor it and implement it day by day, and the United States and France, along with our other allies, are committed to help doing that. And of course, at the end of the day, as the deal states, Israel retains the right to self-defense if Hezbollah or any other terrorist group violates the deal. But we believe that we have learned from the past, and we have designed this deal to be long-standing and to stay in effect, to continue to sustain the peace, and also to ensure the security of the State of Israel.
All right, I want to bring in CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd to talk more about this. Sam, great to see you as always. So how would you assess this deal by Israel?
Well, Vlad, this is a major breakthrough, not just for the United States, but for Israel and Lebanon, such that their citizens can return to their homes. It is also critically important to note that, as National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan mentioned during his remarks, this is a day-by-day implementation, if not a minute-by-minute implementation. The United States government is deeply aware that they will have to pay close attention as to whether Hezbollah and Israel are keeping up their sides of the deal. In large part, that means actually maintaining a truce, so no ongoing fighting, no ongoing airstrikes, but also that both parties withdraw from the areas they said they'll withdraw from over the next 60 days. So the U.S. administration is certainly going into this feeling quite good about the progress made, this historic milestone, but they're also incredibly clear-eyed about the risks of this deal falling apart based upon the long history of conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon dating back decades.
So how do two sides broker a deal like this? I mean, what are the steps that are taken to reach a resolution, sort of behind the scenes that we're not always privy to?
Well, in a situation like this, there are mediators involved. And my friend and former colleague, Amos Hochstein, who's been very close with President Biden for some time, was instrumental in trying to mediate between Hezbollah and the Israelis. So behind the scenes, we had the United States with negotiations led by the Secretary of State, Amos Hochstein, and at times President Biden himself with various parties to the deal, Israel, of course, as well as the French, who had their own set of mediators directly involved on the ground with the two sides. So you have the mediating parties, in this case, the United States and France, and then the two sides, Hezbollah and Israel, who would have named representatives to be their key negotiators. We also have to remember here is it is unlikely that Hezbollah agreed to anything without running it by the regime in Iran. So there had to be conversations between Hezbollah and between the regime in Iran what terms Hezbollah would agree to. I also wouldn't rule out the United States sending back channel messages or private messages to the regime in Iran to urge them to support the conclusion of a ceasefire agreement. So lots of discussions behind the scenes, in addition to, of course, conversations at all levels between staff, between cabinet officials, and ultimately between the president and his counterparts in the region and in France.
All right, Sam Vinograd for us. Sam, as always, great to talk to you, my friend. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, speaking of Thanksgiving, an estimated 80 million people are hitting the roads and the skies for the holiday. Those who are driving can expect a little less pain at the pump this year. CBS News Chicago reporter Mugo Odiwe has the very latest.
We are at O'Hare Airport this morning. A completely different story out here than just yesterday morning when we came out here. Take a look. That Wednesday Thanksgiving travel rush, we are seeing that already. In fact, several times already at the TSA pre-checkpoint, we've actually seen a long line out there. So it's busy out here. But we also know, according to AAA, that more people plan to drive than fly this Thanksgiving, which is why gas stations and, of course, the roads will likely be packed for the next few days. So here's the exact number from AAA. They say 71.7 million people will travel by car this Thanksgiving. That is an additional 1.3 million travelers on the road compared to just last year. Now, this year's number could also surpass pre-pandemic numbers. AAA says it's partly because gas prices are lower compared to last year. In fact, falling oil prices this fall may help push the national average below $3 a gallon for the first time since 2021. But here in Chicago, the average price for gas is $3.62 a gallon. In the burbs, it is $3.44, and in Northwest Indiana, it's $3.13. But there could be other reasons why people are choosing to travel by car this year.
Since COVID, people have had the opportunity to either work remote or hybrid, so that gives them a lot more flexibility. Because of the flexibility and be able to work from remote, people can get out and get on the road earlier, and more people are doing it.
Meanwhile, nearly 6 million Americans plan to fly this Thanksgiving holiday. Some people headed out yesterday to beat the holiday rush we're already seeing today. Back to you.
All right, Mugo, thank you very much. The Thanksgiving Eve travel rush is underway, as you just heard, as U.S. airports. More than 2 million people are expected to board those flights today. CBS News Boston reporter Penny Commit is live from one of the nation's busiest airports and joins me now. That is Logan that you're at, Penny. So what's the travel rush looking like?
Well, Vlad, I think this is a career first for me. Most of the people I've spoken to today are in high spirits. That is normally not the case the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, but that's because things are moving very smoothly. We were also expecting some wintry weather that has delayed, which is some great news for travelers here in Boston. Most of that snow is going to come tomorrow, and it's going to be a little further north. So while, of course, that could still have an impact, especially people driving to the airport, it doesn't look like it's impacting flights whatsoever today. Very few cancellations and delays. So some good, happy spirits here at Logan Airport. Again, not normally what I'm saying the day before Thanksgiving. This is notoriously one of the busiest travel days of the entire year. TSA is expecting that nearly 3 million people will still be screened today, but looks like they are fully staffed, along with the airport's things running very smoothly. And don't just take my word for it. I spoke with a Harvard graduate student. She's studying physics, so a very impressive person and a very impressive traveler. She was smart. She got here very early this morning, and she's very impressed with how things have been running. She got here early. She's a good traveler. And I just want to mention really quick, she's a graduate student studying physics at Harvard. So she's a very impressive person. Deja, where are we going today?
I'm going back home to San Juan, Puerto Rico.
And what are we doing there, and how are we feeling about the travel?
I'm just visiting my family. So I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I just jumped ship to go study grad school here. So I'm just excited to see my family, eat the Christmas/holiday foods in Puerto Rico, which are better. And I'm feeling good. I mean, I'm excited to see my family. And of course, always traveling on holidays gets my anxiety up a little bit. But so far, so good. It looks okay. We just got to push through and just think about the happy holidays that are coming up next.
And, you know, Deja tells me, of course, she would have liked to have flown out earlier in the week, missed a little bit of the rush today. But as she said, quote, adulting is hard, and she had to work up until this morning. Now, when it comes for flight delays and cancellations, we are seeing a fair amount today nationwide. There's about 600 cancellations and over 10,000 delays. So if you are packing up right now, heading to the airport, just be sure that you double check those flights. Vlad?
All right, Penny, great to have you. Thank you very much. Keep us updated. Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with another look at the national forecast. Hey, Grant.
Hey, Vlad, big travel day across the entire country today. In fact, most of the country has got good weather to travel, but there is a system that we're tracking across the central United States, really moving out of the Rockies and the Plains states, that is going to cause more of an issue as we go into Thanksgiving itself. There you see the rain. That will transition up to the east and then eventually into the northeast as it moves out of the Ohio Valley and into the mid-Atlantic and northeast as we go into Thanksgiving. It will be a very wet start to our Thanksgiving day as we go through tomorrow morning, and then by midday tomorrow, things begin to improve. Let me show you the forecast as we go through the next 36 hours or so. We'll start off today. You got that low-pressure system moving in out of Oklahoma. Snow to the north. We'll see that system really crank up as we go into tomorrow morning. You see some snow over portions of northern Pennsylvania to New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire. That storm system will clear the coast as we go through Thanksgiving. By Friday morning, most of the precipitation out of here, but a very cold wind on the backside will kick up the lake effect machine. We'll see some heavy snow totals just south of Buffalo up towards Erie, Pennsylvania. But the other side of that is going to be the bitterly cold air that will be diving in from the north. Let me show you the northern hemisphere, all right? We'll look at the northern hemisphere. We can zoom over here. There's our northern hemisphere. We'll get there eventually. There it is. Let me bring in our temperatures, all right? You'll see these temperatures dive in from the north, this bitter Arctic air descending into the North American and it really into a good portion of North America through the weekend into early next week. That is literally Arctic air diving in from the north that will be invading most of our weekend as we head through the, well, Thanksgiving, Saturday, Sunday. Here's the forecast. I mean, we're talking about some of the coldest air that we've seen so far this season. We'll start off with Thanksgiving itself. We'll see temperatures not near normal, if not slightly warmer than normal over the east. But look up towards North Dakota, 16 degrees. That's tomorrow. Watch that Arctic invasion as we go into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Some places up towards Minneapolis, these high temperatures only in the teens, low temperatures in the single digits. New York will see high temperatures barely climbing out of the 30s with those low temperatures, Vlad, hovering somewhere in the 20s with feels like temperatures in the teens. It's going to be chilly, but for now, we're doing okay.
All right, Grant, thank you very much. Appreciate it, my brother.
Yep.
Okay, New York City is going into high gear ahead of the annual Thanksgiving Day parade. Check these floats out. Where's Underdog? What? Speed of light. Oh, Spider-Man. Okay, that's good. But Underdog, Got to have underdog. We're going to tell you how the city is preparing to keep everyone safe. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Travelers in Pittsburgh are hitting the roads, hoping to avoid some of the anticipated delays. Let's dip into CBS News Pittsburgh coverage of the conditions out there.
Right, Erica, right. David, good morning to you guys. Listen, there's not many people here in the parking lot right now, here at the Oakmont Service Plaza in Plum. There's not that many people out on the turnpike right now. It's literally just a few cars, me, my photographer, Anthony, and the visibility of my breath because of how cold it is. But I tell you, today is going to be the peak for the Thanksgiving travel period when it comes to travel on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. The Turnpike Commission says 680,000 drivers will take the Turnpike today. That builds off of yesterday's projection of 635,000. It says the projections for this year are slightly higher than last year's, and the Turnpike is trying to ensure that people can move through smoothly as well. It currently has roadwork suspended until Sunday night. That's to keep as many lanes open as possible. Nationally, AAA says nearly 80 million Americans are expected to travel for Thanksgiving. That's nearly 2 million more than last year and 2 million more than 2019 before COVID. And this Thanksgiving travel season really has been a continuation of what we've seen all year long, whether it's by car, by train, by plane. It's been an upward trend.
Most people are going to be traveling by
All right, you've been watching along with our colleagues over at CBS News Pittsburgh as they check in on travel conditions on the East Coast. We're going to keep you updated throughout the course of the day. Meanwhile, law enforcement agencies protecting New York City's iconic Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade are on high alert for terror threats this year. There's a new memo from the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security that suggests that there are some concerns over lone wolf attacks and other threats. And the Big Apple isn't the only place where security is getting a boost. CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skanga joins us now to talk more about this. So first of all, Nicole, bring us up to speed on this bulletin and the preparations that are being made.
Yeah, Vlad, this year's parade is expected to draw about 2 million attendees, 10,000 participants, plus all of those floats you mentioned, the vehicles pulling them along that 2.5-mile route. That makes this spectacle an attractive target for violent extremist groups, foreign or domestic, plus law enforcement is on high alert for, as you mentioned, these so-called lone wolf offenders. Our viewers might remember just 2 years ago that 4th of July parade in Highland Park, Illinois. A lone wolf sniper there shot and killed 7 individuals, injuring dozens more. Here's the good news. Law enforcement knows this event is a big one. All of the agencies protecting the Macy's Day Parade, and there are so many of them, the NYPD, the FBI, Secret Service, MTA Police, FDNY, U.S. Coast Guard, that's not even all of them. They're all deploying collectively thousands of officers to this event to ensure the public is safe. Police is going to be on the lookout for drones. Don't fly your drones over the parade. They'll use New York City sanitation vehicles as blocker trucks to safeguard against possible vehicle ramming. And that joint FBI-NYPD threat assessment you mentioned, law enforcement assessed that currently there are no credible, specific, actionable threats against the 98th annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. So that's good news as well, Vlad.
That sure is. Let's talk about, besides these threats and these alerts on terrorism, the landscape online is also a concern this time of year. What are officials saying?
Yeah, cyber criminals are banking on big companies to take basically a cyber holiday, a cyber vacation. And the numbers actually back that up. In fact, there was just a global study of 900 IT and security professionals worldwide released last week by cybersecurity firm Sempris. And it showed that 86% of ransomware attacks targeting businesses over the past year hit on a holiday or a weekend. Here's the kicker. Analysts also finding that 85% of those organizations surveyed and 90% of those in the U.S. actually decreased security staffing during those same times. So even though attackers are more active, cybersecurity teams are less vigilant, and criminals know that. Some of the biggest ransomware attacks that our viewers might remember: Colonial Pipeline hit on Mother's Day weekend, the sabotage of meat processor JBS over Memorial Day weekend. I spoke to the former White House cyber czar, Chris Inglis, about this. He told me companies need to shift this paradigm and be thoughtful about staffing this holiday season.
All right, Nicole Skanga with the latest on the FBI bulletins around Thanksgiving. We appreciate it, Nicole. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks, Vlad.
All right, the weather is posing a major concern for travelers today. Up next, we're watching those snowy, wintry conditions for you. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. This is a wild story. More than 3,000 Gibson electric guitars in one place. But there's a hitch. These are all fake guitars. The federal authorities seized the counterfeits in Southern California in the largest bust on record for phony musical instruments. They estimate the guitar's worth, get this, these fake guitars all told worth about $18 million on the black market. Okay, those look fake. That doesn't look real. The Gibson Guitar Company says the bust is really emotional and personal because the craft of guitar making has been passed down generations with American families. Of course, Gibson guitars are made, okay, that is definitely not a Gibson guitar, that's a Gretsch guitar. Yeah, Gibson guitars are made in the USA with the finest craftsmen, and also the types of wood that they use, the mother of pearl, just can't replicate that. Just can't replicate that. Okay, let's talk about Thanksgiving again. Of course, it's all about eating good, and that doesn't just apply to people, but also to our beloved pets. CBS News Los Angeles reporter Michelle, look at that little puppy. Oh, put that little puppy back in there. Michelle Guillet. Oh, look at that little puppy. Michelle Guillet has a look at the VIP treatment for some of our four-legged friends at a California shelter this year.
Sounds like the bark of a hungry dog. How about a whole kennel of them?
Happy Thanksgiving!
The volunteers who help run the San Clemente Dana Point Animal Shelter consider these pooches more than four-legged friends. They're family. The first annual Barksgiving was their way of bringing the shelter pups to the Thanksgiving table.
As we celebrate Thanksgiving with our family and our loved ones, well, we're their family until these animals are adopted.
These are dogs, after all. Pet Project Foundation workers allowed paws on the table for this special meal.
I created the menu by just searching online for dog-friendly food for Thanksgiving, and I made the turkey meatballs. But truth be told, I used white chicken meat because the animals currently have chicken in their diet, so I thought that would be safer.
The Barksgiving buffet included protein and sweet potatoes, vegetables, of course, and the paws down favorite were the tiny pumpkin pies topped with whipped yogurt.
Happy Thanksgiving!
More than 40 dogs were served, trays loaded with homemade Thanksgiving goodies, delivered one by one to the fur babies' kennels. A few got the royal treatment and ate freestyle.
Happy Barksgiving! About once a month, we'll go up to the high volume shelters, the overcrowded shelters, and we'll bring 7 or 8 dogs back. And we'll get them healthy and socialized, and we'll get it so they can be adopted. It's kind of like they get a second chance.
Every single animal at the shelter will remain here until it finds its forever home. River lived in a Pet Project kennel for 2.5 years and was recently adopted. In San Clemente, Michelle Geely, KCAL News.
All right, let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with the final look at the national forecast. Hey, Grant.
Hey, Vlad, travel trouble across a good portion of the nation's heartland moving out of the Rockies today. But most of the country, actually decent travel weather. We'll have to watch out for some potential delays out towards St. Louis later on this evening as this storm system transitions to the east. A little cooler in the northeast, but mild conditions across much of the south, and then cooler back into the west coast. Now, the big issue for Thanksgiving is going to be the storm system moving into the mid-Atlantic and northeast. Heavy rainfall to start off Thanksgiving, even some snow, northern Pennsylvania into New York and Vermont. But as we go into Friday, a lot of shopping, in fact, a lot of dry weather, except for the Gulf states, but then even colder weather invading the eastern half of the United States as we head into the weekend. Vlad, back to you.
All right, Grant. Happy Thanksgiving, man. That does it for me, folks. Stay right where you are after the break. Elizabeth Cook is live from San Francisco with all the news breaking from coast to coast. This is CBS News 24/7. Happy Thanksgiving.